Do you want someone to submit without ever being asked? To think of you in their sleep, feel unease in your absence, and reach for you even while they are being undone? There are methods that do not rely on charm. They do not persuade. They embed. They do not overpower. They infiltrate. This is not content meant to be liked or shared for self-improvement. It is an examination of psychological dominance. A breakdown of how influence overrides autonomy, how perception is bent, and how emotional ownership is established without visible force. These are 10 extreme mechanisms of control. If you have ever felt discarded, overlooked, or replaced, consider this an analysis of how such power operates, not through rage, but through precision. Because when someone's inner world is governed, physical presence becomes irrelevant. Technique 1. Fracture reality, then become the anchor. Have you ever watched a person slowly lose trust in their own mind? Not through violence or confrontation, but quietly. They hesitate before forming opinions. They second-guess their memories. They look to someone else before believing their own emotions. This is not connection. This is conditioning. This process is mechanical, not emotional. First comes destabilization, then controlled stabilization. The attachment formed here is not based on affection, but on dependence. It begins subtly. Reality is not attacked outright. It is questioned softly. Are you sure that's how it happened? That doesn't quite align with what you said earlier. No accusation, no conflict, just small fractures, micro-doubts that are difficult to defend against. Certainty weakens, and when certainty collapses, the mind searches for stability. That is when the stabilizing figure appears, calm, grounded, confident. Not demanding authority, but becoming it by contrast. Emotional orientation shifts. The destabilized person begins to use this presence as a reference point, not by instruction, but by necessity. The second phase follows naturally. The stabilizer becomes the interpreter. Emotions are explained, reactions reframed, doubts categorized. Confusion is translated into meaning, but only through one voice. Over time, the individual's internal dialogue changes tone. It no longer sounds like their own. Dependency is not announced, it emerges unnoticed. When someone requires another person to understand what they feel, autonomy quietly dissolves. From there, separation becomes destabilizing. Absence creates fear. Presence becomes relief. The attachment is not love, it is gravity. The stabilizing figure is no longer desired, they are required. Technique 2. Cycles of chaos and relief. Attachment does not grow from comfort alone. It grows from disruption followed by resolution. This method relies on controlled inconsistency. Warmth is offered generously, attention, closeness, validation, then withdrawn without explanation. Not anger, not conflict, just emotional absence. The result is not immediate pain, but searching. The mind replays interactions, scans for errors, looks for causes. When no clear answer exists, the loop continues. Affection returns only at the point of emotional exhaustion. Relief follows confusion. The nervous system records the pattern. Over time, the individual no longer trusts their internal rhythm. They respond to external cues instead. Effort increases. Boundaries weaken. Self-blame replaces clarity. Because when one person controls the rhythm of stress and comfort, they begin to regulate the other's emotional chemistry. They stop being a participant and become a system. Technique 3. Somatic imprinting. The body retains what the mind cannot articulate. Intensity engraves memory faster than logic ever could. This mechanism relies on contrast, overwhelm paired with withdrawal, sensation followed by absence. The nervous system links heightened experience to a single source. When stimulation overrides cognition, the imprint bypasses reason. Desire becomes reflexive, recognition becomes physiological. Even resistance fails at the somatic level, and then comes disappearance. No reassurance, no closure. The contrast deepens the association. Pleasure is followed by silence. Wanting becomes conflicted. Shame fuses with longing. This is not intimacy. It is conditioning through sensation. Technique 4. validation as substance. The most powerful leverage is not affection, it is recognition. When approval is rare, unpredictable, and selectively distributed, it becomes something the mind seeks to regulate itself. Contact is no longer about connection, it is about relief. Once a person associates self-worth with a single source of validation, pursuit becomes automatic. Distance no longer repels, it activates. At that point, no chasing is required. The system sustains itself. Become the small signal that quiets the emptiness, the glance, the pause, the sentence that lands at the right moment. When your approval begins to matter more than her dignity, this is no longer a connection. It is dependence. This technique is not about praise. Anyone can flatter. This is about timing. Warmth is delivered only after absence. Relief comes immediately after deprivation. Paradise follows hell. You have already seen this pattern before, the drip. Here, it intensifies. Each time she adjusts herself to please you, to earn alignment, to reshape her emotions around your expectations, you acknowledge it briefly, precisely. There, that's better. And then you disappear again. What you triggered was not comfort. It was dopamine, not through touch, but through meaning. Validation becomes a chemical reward, invisible, rationalized. She tells herself you are simply honest, simply selective. But her nervous system has already learned the equation. Approval equals worth. So when insecurity surfaces, she does not look inward. She looks toward you. And you decide whether she stabilizes or collapses. Once this association forms, reversal becomes almost impossible. You deepen it by making approval conditional. Warmth becomes selective. Attention is withheld until it is noticed, then released sparingly. Each fragment feels earned, like passing an unseen test. Attention becomes currency. Your presence becomes reward. Your gaze becomes fuel. You are no longer a partner. You are the authority that measures value. Now combine this with what came before. Intensity in the body, followed by judgment. She doesn't just feel you, she waits for confirmation that she performed correctly. When it doesn't arrive, withdrawal sets in. Restlessness, self-doubt, craving. Not for you, but for approval. The structure is forming. It does not look like control. It feels like connection. That is why it holds. But this is only the surface. Technique 5. Break, then bind. This technique does not aim for love. It aims for need, for dependence forged through pain. Once you control her need for approval, you gain access to her pain. And pain is leverage. There is a bond stronger than affection, deeper than desire, more addictive than admiration. The bond between the one who causes the wound and the one who later offers relief. The structure is simple. The effect is devastating. You create an emotional rupture, not with anger, not with volume, but with distance, with silence, with a single sentence delivered calmly at the precise moment of safety. I don't know if this is what I want. You say it after closeness, after trust, after she believed the ground was solid. The damage is quiet, internal. She fractures rather than explodes, and when the signs appear, confusion, desperation, collapse, that is when you return. Not apologetic, not explanatory. You do not justify. You simply say, "It's okay, it's over." In this context, those words are not comfort. They are instruction. You become both the source of pain and the source of relief. From that moment forward, you are no longer just a person. You are regulation. Her nervous system orients around you. After connection, you withdraw. You let doubt surface. You allow her to fall. And just before shutdown, you return. Tender, present, not for pleasure, but for imprinting. She no longer knows whether you are the one who breaks her or the one who saves her. That uncertainty is the cage. Many mistake this for passion. They call it intensity, depth, complexity. They do not see that fragmentation has already occurred, and now we move deeper, past emotion, past desire, past pain, into thought itself. Technique 6. Make the thought feel like hers. Real control is not obedience. Real control is when the idea feels self-generated, when she changes and swears it was her choice, when she wants you and believes it was freedom. This is not persuasion, it is infiltration. You do not use statements, you use questions. You do not accuse, you suggest. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," you ask, "Don't you think fear sometimes speaks for you?" The sentence sounds reasonable, caring, safe, and when repeated internally, it does the work for you. Another path is indirect narrative. You speak of others. Someone who lost something valuable due to pride. Someone who walked away because they felt they were never enough. You are not talking about her. That is why the idea enters clean. No defenses activate. No alarms sound. The thought reaches the core untouched. Later, you reinforce lightly, casually. I admire people who can admit mistakes. I respect those who know what they want. Each sentence is a seed. Seeds require no force, only time. When the change occurs, she will believe it was growth, that she matured, that she chose differently. The internal map, however, has already been rewritten. This is not manipulation, it is perception design. And now that thought is influenced, we move to fear. Technique 7. Reflect the shadow. Everyone hides parts of themselves, impulses, envy, desire, shame. Now imagine what happens when someone reflects those parts back calmly, without attack, without rejection. This technique is not exposure, it is recognition followed by conditional acceptance. You identify her blind spot, fear of abandonment, the need to control, the quiet manipulation she denies. You name it softly. Sometimes it feels like you need control to feel safe. Then you soften it. I'm not judging, everyone has hidden parts. She stops resisting because you did not attack. You understood her, you spoke to the part she hides. Attachment forms not from love, but from relief. Now she stays close because you make her feel less dangerous to herself. You become the place where her shadow is tolerated, and that shadow becomes leverage. When you want to set limits, you do not argue, you remind. You know how far that side of you can go. You don't want to sabotage this again. Her shadow restrains her for you. There is no conflict, no struggle, only internal correction. If she wants to feel understood, she must stay near you. Without you, she feels exposed, monstrous, and no one wants to face that alone. Technique 8. Weaponize the past. Some wounds never close, they wait, and in the next stage, the past is not healed, it is used. Some wounds are buried, denied, spoken about as if they no longer matter, but they never stop beating. And when someone learns how to touch them slowly, without rushing, without force, without appearing cruel, those wounds stop feeling like pain. They begin to feel like obedience. Because an injury that never healed doesn't only hurt, it reacts. And reaction can be controlled. This is not about attraction or persuasion. It is about domination from the most vulnerable place inside a person. It begins quietly, with listening. Not interrupting, not fixing, not advising. Just letting someone speak. Sooner or later, everyone reveals their fracture. Abandonment, humiliation, replacement. The details are irrelevant. What matters is the meaning they attach to it. At first, nothing is done with that knowledge. It is stored carefully, protected, almost respectfully, like a blade wrapped in velvet. The danger lies in patience. Then, when doubt appears, when trust weakens, when questions form, when leaving becomes a thought, the response is not confrontation, it is recognition. The wound is named softly. I understand. It feels like when you were left, when you believed you weren't enough. The words are not sharp. They are delivered with a calm so cold it disarms. That is where the fracture deepens. Because no one touches that place, no one names it so precisely, no one dares to press exactly where it still burns. The effect is immediate. Being seen at that depth is terrifying. Hiding becomes impossible. Leaving becomes unthinkable. The same presence that touched the pain also remains beside it. That contradiction, harm and safety intertwined, creates a cage without walls. Memory does the locking. Over time, the wound becomes justification. Control is reframed as protection. Compliance as prevention. I know trust is difficult, but if you don't do this, you'll ruin everything again. There is no argument, no resistance. Fear and history speak louder than reason. Yielding feels like survival. Not because of force, but because the past has already taught the cost of defiance. This is where dependency forms. The person is no longer just present. They are embedded inside the scar itself. The story cannot be told without them appearing in it, and stories don't end cleanly. Then the shift happens, from memory to identity. Everyone carries an internal name, a sentence that defines how they treat themselves. I'm difficult, I'm hard to love, I ruin things. These are not spoken aloud, they are lived, and whoever reshapes that label reshapes the entire script. The change is subtle, it sounds like description. You always run when people start to love you. You're chaos, but that's what makes you special. Repeated during vulnerability, those words take root. They echo when decisions are made. Actions begin to align with a character that feels inevitable. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels accurate, familiar, true. And once that internal name settles, behavior follows without resistance. Approval reinforces it. Distance threatens it. The need for coherence pulls the person back into the role again and again. At that point, control no longer requires presence. And then comes the final absence. Not anger, not confrontation. Silence, delivered with precision. Disappearance immediately after closeness, after openness, after emotional surrender. No explanation, no closure. The mind cannot process what it cannot complete. The absence loops endlessly. Not because of love, but because the nervous system never learned how the story ended. The questions repeat. What happened? What did I do? Why was I left? And because there is no answer, the wound remains. Quiet, non-bleeding, permanent. This is not passion. This is not depth. This is psychological damage mistaken for connection. And understanding this is not about learning to use it, but about recognizing it before it reshapes a life.